Everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, where we talk to amazing people doing incredible things that lead the charge of generosity. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone is not duck, but that's what makes them awesome. Now, today our guest is Brian Patafie. Now, Brian is a keynote speaker and a certified, and as he says, he has his doctorate in laughter mixology, and he's the author of No Days Off, The Story of Hockey Purgatory. Now, Brian has created the No More Bullies program and just loves to engage with people. From being a kid in the military family and was constantly moving around, and he also had a speech impediment and really did not want to talk in class, he took those experiences to launch himself forward. And as quoted, he wants to leave fingerprints on the moon. So this is a great story of getting knocked down, getting back up again, and then only making it better because of those experiences. Now, I am honored to have as my guest today, Mr. Brian Patafie. Brian Patafie, I want to thank you ever so much for taking the time out of your day. I know you're a busy guy, but thank you for being a guest on my podcast, and it's absolutely great to have you here.
Well, you know what? It's great to be here. I saw some of your podcasts, and it's just a positive thing. And like we talked earlier, I said the other day, if you need a guy to talk you off the ledge, Warren's the guy. So finding out what you do, away from this is okay. But why isn't he working for the for the police or something to help talk everybody off the ledge in these unprecedented times?
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for your kind words. And I have to put it out there just because of last night's events, that I'm in a state of I'm mourning today, because of the fact that the Leafs lost last night. I'm in a state of mourning.
Well, you know what? And I know it's a little different this year because it's August. So why don't you just set your timer for the 15th of every April? Okay, because it's a rite of passage as a Leaf fan that you're going to be disappointed the 15th of April. You got to get used to it.
Oh, it's been many, many, many years, actually. but I still have hope. Brian, let's take you back in time. What got you from being a gosling to leaving the nest and to where you are today? What's your backstory, Brian?
Okay, well, here it is, and I'm going to give you the Coles Notes or the Reader's Digest version. But okay, as a kid growing up in a military family, 2 weeks after I was born, my family moved to Germany. 2 years later, we moved to Greenwood, Nova Scotia. 6 years later, we're moving to Trenton, Ontario, and then 2 years later, we're going to Ottawa. And I'm a kid with a speech impediment, and maybe you can't hear much of it now, but I'll tell you what, as a kid with a lisp, when you go into a new school, the kids hear that, and they called me everything from Daffy Duck to whatever. Daffy Patafie was a favorite of theirs, and so I was really what had happened. My dad, when I was in 7th grade, my dad retired. We moved back to our hometown of Ottawa, and I went to my very first public school. See, every school I had attended had been a school on a base where the big question was, what rank is your dad? Or what does your dad do in the Air Force? My dad was an airplane mechanic. So now I'm in my very first public school, and some of the questions were, do you have a dad? See, I didn't experience that growing up. You're sheltered. When you're a military brat, you're sheltered. You're living on the base. Everything is there for you. There's a pool for the officers' kids. There's a pool for the enlisted men's kids. There's a theater. There's a drugstore. Everything's on the base. So finally, I've been dropped in 7th grade into a public school, Carlton Heights Public School. And I remember my teacher. His name was David Archambault. And so one day, Mr. Archambault said, and he called everybody by their Mr. or Miss, So he said, Mr. Patafie, he goes, when the bell goes at the end of class today, he said, stay where you are. And so everybody just turned and looked at me and like, God, what did he do? You know, and I'm saying to myself, what did I do? So anyway, this is the kind of teacher he was, you know, because it could be intimidating. He came and sat down in the desk across from me instead of calling me up to his desk. He sat across from me and he looked in my eyes and he said, Mr. Patafie, he said, I want to ask you a question. He said, when I give everybody an assignment, he said, you come in, you hand it in, and it's aces. It's 100% all the time. You do your research, you do a good job. But he said, but when I ask a question in class and I need an oral answer, he goes, your hand never goes up, and I know you know the answer. He goes, why is that? I said, well, I'm just kind of shy. He goes, well, I think you're lying to me. He said, I think that because of your speech impediment and the kids making fun of you, you just don't want to talk in front of the kids. And so I got really like sort of pushed back in my chair, and I said, well, yeah, that's kind of it. I said, I've been going through this for, you know, all my school years now. And I said, this is different to me, you know, and I told him, I laid it out to him. I said, you know, like the kid across from me, his dad drives a Pepsi truck. I'd never seen that before. The kid in front of me, his father's a pastor. The kid behind me, you know, his father's a lawyer. I'd never seen that. I'd never seen a you know, like I say, in the Air Force, we all come in, you know, we're all in the same kind of, you know, there's officers' kids and then there's enlisted men's kid. I was an enlisted men's kid, but you didn't see it in the classroom. You know, but you did see it in public schools. And this was just all new to me. And he goes, well, you know what I need you to do? He goes, we got a public speaking contest coming up next month. And he goes, I want you to enter the class contest. And if the class deems your speech the best, then you'll represent our class in the school public speaking contest. And if the school picture is the best, in March, you go to Ottawa Technical High School downtown in their auditorium. It's 2,500 seat auditorium. You'll represent Carleton Heights Public School. I told him I'd think about it. Got up, walked out, and like there wasn't a chance that I was going to do that. So he wants me to stand up and do a speech in front of the very kids that make fun of me. And you know what? I'm a seventh grader, and then, you know, if I did get lucky and had to go against the eighth graders, you know, in the school, and I'd get decimated. So I went home and I told my dad, and my dad did the very thing that me as a father promised my kids I would never do. He walked to school with me the next day, you know, because he wanted to talk to the teacher. Now, how embarrassing is that? Okay. So anyway, him and Mr. Archambault talked before class, and we had a vote. But the only thing was, Warren, I was too young to vote. So they had a vote, and they decided I was going to enter our class's public speaking contest. So long story short, I win our class. I'm nervous. I win our school. I'm nervous. I go to Ottawa Technical High School, and in the third row is my father, my mother, Mr. Archambault, and the principal and vice principal of Carleton Heights Public School. And back then, I was the only seventh grader to win the City of Ottawa public speaking contest. Blew them away.
Wow.
You know what? My life changed. My life changed. I remember, you know, I wasn't a real good hockey player. I played house league and that. And so I remember we had a team in Ottawa, a travel team that was sponsored by Chappie's Fish and Chips, who are no longer around anymore, but they were a big chain through Ontario at the time. And so I went to the coach. His name was Mr. Sabarin. And I went to him and I said, I'd like to be your trainer and equipment manager. You know, seventh grade, right? And this was a Bantam team. He goes, you just want to hang around here because you're not good enough to play here, and you're not good enough to be a trainer or equipment manager. He goes, go get your education. That's what he said to me. Back then, adults got away with that.
Right. Yep.
So all he did was motivate me. Here was another public speaking contest in another form. Okay. So I don't ever want to do that. Ta-da! But let's go years later, and I'm in Ottawa, 1980, and I am the head trainer of the Ottawa 67s hockey team, an iconic junior A, major junior franchise. And I'm the head trainer working with Brian Kilray, who would later on become a Hall of Fame coach. And the season ticket holders 2 rows behind the bench was the Sabarin family. The man who told me in 7th grade I didn't have it. And I remember telling Brian Kilray that. And I said, I said, it's weird. It's almost like karma. I said, what do I do? What do I say? He goes, Brian, he goes, you don't say anything. He said, because that man pays good money to come and watch you work. And that's all I needed. So nothing was ever said, you know. I had this, and I'm not like, I'll show you. It's, I'm going to show me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because, you know, I went through a life of a lot of people telling me, you know what, you're not going to amount to anything. You can't do it. And whether it was coming home with a bad report card and you know, and my mother was very ill throughout her whole life. She had a lot of issues throughout her whole life, and mental health back then, there was a stigma. I mean, I remember the hospital that she was put in a few times in Ottawa was called a sanatorium, the Royal Ottawa Sanatorium. Well, we don't use that word anymore.
Correct.
I remember friends when we'd be coming home on the bus and we'd go by it, and they'd all get up the window because they wanted to look at what was happening in the nut house.
Yeah.
You know, and my mother was in there, so I knew, you know, like I knew, and but you know what, you soldier on, you trudge on, and I picked something that I have a passion for in my life, and I have a passion for 3 things, actually 4: God, my family, working in professional sport, and speaking. I love to speak. I love to be the guy who reaches down to pull somebody up, but I'll never be the guy who reaches up and pulls somebody down.
Right.
So that's why I'm on here today, because I watch your stuff and I see a younger version of me with obviously a better shirt and a better hairdo, but I see a younger version of me in you, Warren. And so I just love, my second go around in Ottawa, because, you know, they say things come back to where they started. My second go around in Ottawa, I went back to the 67s in 2003 as a married man with 2 children and an American wife who couldn't work in Canada because we were going through the process, but she couldn't work. So you know, she was a stay-at-home mom. And Jeff Hunt, the owner in Ottawa, encouraged me to get involved in an anti-bullying program. And he had kind of the template for the program, and I said, no disrespect, Jeff, can I rewrite this? And he goes, go with it. 5 years in Ottawa, every elementary school, every high school, within a 100-mile radius, there was myself and 2 of our high-end players in talking about anti-bullying, how to diffuse it, how to recognize it. You see, bullying is different today than it was way back in the day, because way back in the day, in the 60s, if you got punched in the nose, somebody said you got bullied. Now, one of the biggest weapons for bullying is this.
Yep, absolutely.
A device, an iPhone, an Android. It's getting, you know, going on to these social medias and being a troll, or going on and not using your own name or profile picture, and you know, the consequences of somebody being bullied it's just, you know, I've seen kids take their own lives, and people, you know, they don't understand. So I did it for 5 years in Ottawa. When Brian Kilray retired, I said it's time for me to move on. I thought my calling, and I still think my calling's in the locker room. I'm a 64-year-old man hanging out in a locker room in junior A hockey with 15 to 20-year-old kids, and I can rap with the best of them. You know, my 20-year-old son Dominic says to me, he goes, Dad, I'm a little bit concerned. You know, he goes, you know, at your age, and he came up here to Chilliwack, and he goes, Dad, I have no more concerns. They love you. It's because, you know what, you engage. And
Mm-hmm.
I love to engage. I want to invest in people. So one day, I've got 5 players sitting in the player lounge, and they're talking about their girlfriends. So I looked at one of them and I said, Ethan, I said, what is your girlfriend's love language? He goes, what? I go, what is her love language? He goes, what's that supposed to mean? I said, well, let me tell you. My wife's love language is acts of service. I said, if I cut the grass and trim the hedges and paint around the house, my wife just loves me more and more and more. I said, my love language is physical touch. When we're walking into church or we're walking through the mall, I love it if my wife holds my hand. I said, it's a love language. And I said, and so they're all looking at me and they're going, oh yeah, right, Taff, right, Taff. Well, our video coach overheard it and he goes, no, guys, he's not stringing you along. He goes, before my wife and I got married, we took this as a test to find out what your love language is. And you can go on Google and you know, and they're all laughing at me. The next day, these guys all came in and told me what their love language was and what their girlfriend's love language was. So, you know, you get these opportunities in life and you don't want to let them pass by. You just don't. Whether you're walking down the street and it's difficult now with a mask on when you know to smile at somebody, or you know, a lot of times I'll be in the parking lot at Walmart and I'll grab the loose carts, 2 of them, and I'll pull them in with me on my way in because people chose, or maybe because of a physical disability, they felt they couldn't walk the cart back or into one of the cart holding areas. So I pull 2 in. And then if my wife is with me, she'll pull 2 in. We can't hold hands there until we get the cart. But, you know, the thing is, somebody's going to see you doing that, and it's going to have an impact on them. You know, and so it just, I invest in people. And so that's what's brought me to here. We end up back in my wife's hometown of Jamestown, North Carolina. We had a small home there, had a new roof put on it, but it was 2 bedrooms. So there, we have a boy and a girl, they're teenagers, and mom and dad. So mom and dad slept in the living room on a pullout, and the kids each had a bedroom. But that pullout, while mom was working and doing what she had to do to support the family, dad was sitting at the end of the couch moping. Okay, I was 8 months, I moped. But I want to tell you, Warren, I learned a lot in those 8 months. I learned that the people at my food bank, okay, for my 4 visits there to feed my family, knew that my kids volunteered there, and knew that my kids knew that people that came home with food from the food bank came home with it in a banana box. They put all mine in grocery bags because it was a pride issue. And I know that, you know what, we're not supposed to be prideful, but it was a pride issue. And I'm coming home with these grocery bags. And as far as my kids knew at the time, I was coming home from the grocery store, you know? And so what does that do? That food bank in the Triad in North Carolina is, my wife's involved. My son, when he's home, is involved. My daughter here, when she's back there, is involved. It is thriving. We as a family are thriving, okay? But we went through, okay, I'll tell people, I didn't hit rock bottom, but I could see it from where I was. I could see rock bottom. It wasn't going well.
So it's interesting, Brian, you know, that you say that, because and other people I've had on my podcast, we'll give a shout out to Gary Maxwell, you know, a good friend of ours. And it was a defining moment when a two sentences on company letterhead, and your life is changed.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, so we spent, you know, I spent 8 months at the end of the couch. Then, as I was telling you earlier, I took a job. I tried working in PT clinics. Okay, as a licensed PT, I thought it would be a slam dunk, but it wasn't, because for 35 years at that time, I had been working with highly motivated athletes. So
Right.
when you have them on the table, they want to get off the table as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
Now I'm in a clinic where there's guys drawing 2/3 of their pay tax free on workman's comp, and they're getting their legs rubbed on the table every day, and they don't have to set an alarm to do it. And you know what? They're not motivated. They'll go back to their work because it ends, the gravy train ends.
Yep.
But you're getting people like, and geriatrics that'll come in with a hip or a knee replacement, and I can't push them. And so that was part of my DNA, taking these motivated athletes and pushing them. And so I said to Dawn, I said, I'm going to apply for a job over at Food Lion. And she goes, oh, you're going to go in the management program? I said, well, if I could eventually. I said, I think I just want to work in a grocery store. So here I go to Food Lion, and I'm talking to one of the managers. And I said, Tina, I said, my name's Brian Patafie. I said, I applied online 2 months ago. I said, when are you people going to call me? She goes, where do you live? I said, just down the road. She goes, do you want to work in the frozen section? I said, yeah. She goes, will you take $9 an hour? That's right. I said, well, what are my options? She goes, it pays $9 an hour. I said, well, okay, I'll take it. There was no negotiating. I didn't need an agent. Okay. So I started in frozen. Absolutely hate it, Warren, because you're going in the freezer, and the big freezer trucks are coming in. You got to rotate stuff in a freezer. I felt like Arctic Mike or Antarctic Mike, who did all his training in an industrial freezer. But
you were used to being around rinks. I mean, this should be
but
felt like home.
Yeah, well, you know what? Our locker room here has a hot tub, sauna, big screen TV. There was none of them in Food Lion. Okay, so anyhow, I got Tina told me these are my hours every week. On truck day, you come in at 9 in the morning and you leave at 2 in the afternoon. They didn't want me getting more than 30 some hours because they didn't want to pay me benefits or anything else. And that's how it is in the US. They cut you off before you get to 40 hours.
Yeah.
So we had an agreement every truck day. I didn't even look at my schedule. Well, then Tina leaves, and this new assistant manager comes in, and he had an agenda, and he comes to me one day. One of the other managers come to me one day and goes, what are you doing here so early? You don't start till 4:30. I said, no, I come in at 9 on truck days, and I do this, and this, And he goes, no, Chris has changed it all. He doesn't want you here at 9 if the truck doesn't arrive till 11. And if the truck didn't arrive till 11, I'm cleaning the freezer and rotating stock. And anyway, so I said, well, I finished my shift that day, and I got called in the next truck day. And I told Chris, I said, well, like any man, I'll work the shift that you tell me, but I'm giving you my 2 weeks notice right now. I said, I'm going to go find another job. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, Chris, no disrespect. I can find a job anywhere that pays $9 an hour. I'm not going to come in at 4:30 and give up like my every night, and close. So the big manager comes, like the store manager comes to me the next day. He said, I hear you quit. I said, yeah. He goes, you have such a rapport. He goes, with the customers here, you know them by name. You're helping them with their groceries, and I was engaging in people's lives. See, to me, I wasn't a $9 an hour Food Lion employee. I was put there to engage in different people's lives. And he goes, well, I don't want you to quit. I said, well, I don't want to work nights. He goes, well, what are we going to do? I said, who runs this store? You are the assistant manager. I said, and I'll just leave it at that. So he calls me at home and he says, Brian, here's what I want you to do. Chris is going to offer you a job in produce, but he wants to do it so it doesn't look like you got your way. So this is what you're dealing with. For $9 an hour, Okay, so I gotta come in and okay, yeah, I said that's fine. And he goes, you get 35 hours a week in produce, and he goes, you got to be gone after 35. I said no problem. So you know what? They put me in produce, and I found out in produce, and I loved it, but I found out that you have to rotate everything in produce. You're putting new tomatoes out, well, you got to take the old ones, bring them to the front. Do this, do that. Well, one of the big things about produce is in Food Lion in the southern U.S., the flower are in produce, cut flowers. Right. Well, they date out. And so Chris had told me when the flowers date out, you throw them out in the back. So I went to the manager and I said, hey, when the flowers date out, can I give them to good customers? He goes, yeah, I don't see why not. It's not like they're going to ingest them. You know, like if a pizza dates out, you got to throw it away. I understand that, you know, but flowers, he said, I think that's a great idea. So I would take all the ones that dated out and I'd put them in the fridge at the back, and I'd see these people come in and you know, regular customers, older ladies, you know, gentlemen, you know, that looked like they, you know, like they're looking at prices and stuff like that, and they'd be with their wives, and I go up and I give them these flowers and I write on them, there's no charge. And I said, I just want to be honest with you. I said, in another day, we're going to throw them away, but I think maybe you can take them. And I've had customers come back and say, I got another 2 weeks out of them flowers. We had a lady sheriff from the Guilford County Sheriff's Department come in, and she's in uniform, and I'd see her all the time. And I went up to her and I said, Miss, I said, I'd like to give you these. Thank you for everything you do. I want to give you these. I said, no charge. Please take. She goes, well, you're wonderful. She goes, you're wonderful. What can I do for you? I said, well, I drive a blue Altima, and the license plate is North Carolina, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. If you see me going a little bit over the speed limit, just wave. And we laughed. But so this lady would come in asking for me, and right. She'd ask for me. But I still wasn't in my happy place, okay? I was taking what was a bad situation and trying to turn it into a good one. All of a sudden, I get a call on Facebook Messenger. Never had gotten a call on Facebook Messenger in my life. It's Richard Chernamaz. He was a captain of the Salt Lake Golden Eagles back in 1988 when I was a trainer there. Now, I had Richard on Facebook, and we talked, you know, in the comment section, but we never spoke to each other in over 20 years. He goes, Pataf, he goes, you got anything left in the tank? I said, why, what are you thinking? He goes, I need a North American trainer. And I said, where? He goes, I'm over in Frankfurt.
For the Gosling, okay, grew up into an ugly duckling, but you know what? I'm kind of happy where I am. And, you know, I've crossed some learning bridges on the way, and some of them I kind of stepped back a couple of steps, but you know, it's a different. I live a different type of life. You know, it's nice to say, yeah, I'm a licensed physical therapist and I'm a certified athletic trainer. But if you take the pie, okay, and I take a pie and you slice the pie with what my daily duties are, 3/4 of that pie is cleaning the locker room and doing laundry. You know, like this isn't the National League. Yeah. You know, another piece of that little sliver of that pie is sharpening skates or equipment management.
Right.
And but when you take the whole pie, whether I'm doing laundry, folding towels, sharpening skates, or taping ankles, I'm engaging. I'm engaging in people's lives.
Right.
And that makes it worth it.
And that's where I want to take you. We're gonna jump ahead. You know, I've always got these other questions for you, but you've kind of answered them along the way. So this is a very interesting podcast. But you know, one of the things by listening to your story, Brian, is you know, it sort of comes down to if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So it's all over the map, right? You've had quite the journey, and you know, where I want to take this next question to you, Brian, is what are you doing right now to better the pond? And more importantly, is that too, and I think you've already answered this already, but I'd really love to hear your words on it. Why are you doing it? You know, you talk about engagement and you keep bringing that word up, and I can totally see that in you. And what's fascinating for me is the shy kid who had the speech impediment, who didn't want to say anything, to the person who's engaging everyone that he crosses paths with. That's a very interesting journey. And so, you know, I want to know from you again, you know, what are you doing to better the pond, Brian?
Well, you know, I don't know if I can sort of put my finger on one thing. I think that part of it is when we look at it and we use the analogy of the pond. So I've swam across the pond. Okay, so and I use a golf analogy with my players. I said, boys, in the game of life, you're standing on the first tee box, getting ready to hit the ball. I said, I'm on number 18 and my ball is already on the green and I'm walking up to it. And I said, I only hope I 6-putt, because I want a little more time.
Yeah.
Okay. But the big guy's going to call me home when he's ready to.
Mm-hmm.
But in the meantime, because I'm 3/4 of the way across the pond and I can see the other side, the ducklings coming behind me, okay, I don't want them to make the same mistakes I made. Now, some of them are going to out of stubbornness. But if you can, say, hey, you know what, I took that route. And that ain't cool. Or I took that route, and that ain't cool.
Mm-hmm.
Like I talk about anti-bullying, and the guys like to laugh with me because on the bus somebody will chirp me, and I'll Don Rickles them back, and they don't even know who Don Rickles is. I'll give it back to them tenfold.
Right.
Okay. And they go, well, I thought you were an anti-bullying advocate. And I go, well, I just want to show you how it feels,
Yeah.
Like and it's funny because Bobby Stewart, the late Bobby Stewart, was he was the equipment manager for the Calgary Flames. He started with the Atlanta Flames, moved up to Calgary, and then he met his wife in Atlanta when he was with the Flames. Then he went to the Thrashers when they came into the NHL to take his wife back home, sort of thing. And my best friend, just my absolute best friend. And I was up in Calgary for training camp one time, and we had this first round draft pick, and I'll leave it unmentioned who he was. But he is just giving it to Bobby. He's 19 years old and just verbally abusing Bobby. And I walked in, I go, what's your name? And he told me, and I said, oh, and he was a forward. And, I said, oh, I looked at your stats. I thought you were a goalie, Well, all the veterans in the room, right? And then I just kept walking, right? So now I've got the same guy in Salt Lake City. Same attitude. Players didn't trust him, didn't like him, drove the candy apple red vet, just just bonus baby.
Yeah.
Okay. Come up to me about 3 months into the season, and he goes, Pataf, is there anything you can do for me? I'm having a hard time sleeping at night. I said, why don't you give Calgary some of the money back? Well, he storms out of the room. All of a sudden, maybe an hour later, Cliff Fletcher calls me. And one thing I got to tell you about Cliff Fletcher, whenever he'd call, he'd always be on speakerphone. And that was very intimidating for me because it sounded like he had a garbage can over his mouth. When he goes, Pataf. I go, hi, Cliff. He goes, Pataf, I need to know verbatim what you said to so-and-so today. I said, well, Cliff, I was out of line. I want to apologize. He goes, I didn't call for an apology. I need to know. I got a call from his agent. I need to know. And he goes, I want you to tell it exactly how it happened. And so I just go in and start the same way I told you. All of a sudden, I hear all this laughter. He had brought the whole hockey department into his office, telling them, you got to hear what Pataf said. And Cliff would always remind me over the years. I worked from 11 of my 15 years at Calgary, and he'd always remind me over the years. He goes, every time you say something, that reminds me why I didn't hire you as a PR guy. And but I just I've been across that pond or quite a ways across it, and so I got these, and these are kids here. Like they walk in here with knapsacks on, because they're coming from school, and they eat those little puddings that their billet sends or their mom sends, and 5 of them show up in one car because 4 of them aren't old enough to drive. It's not like Calgary when I would go to the back parking lot and see all these $60,000 and $70,000 cars, and I had my Ford Granada back there. So these kids are and they're learning. And then, but I have some kids. Like I had Gary Volk's kid. Gary played for the Leafs in Vancouver. I've got his kid here. I had Brenda Moore's kid here 2 years ago, and they know the pro game, and they sort of kind of come in and say, yeah, he's right. My dad told me the same thing. And that's just like a tap on the back. I'm getting a kid here named Kennedy O'Connor. He's coming in here this year. When I was a trainer in Augusta, Georgia, his dad, Tom O'Connor, played defense for us. And Kennedy was born in the same hospital my 2 kids were born in. And I remember his mom brought him home as a little tiny baby. But he's coming here to play for us in Chilliwack this year.
Wow.
So I've come full circle.
Yeah.
And a very grateful father in Tom. He goes, I hope you treat him like you treated me. And I said, was I good to you, Tom? He goes, when I was good to you. But he goes, you told it like it was. And he goes, Kennedy needs that too. And I, okay, I guess that's a compliment. But yeah, I'm just, we all have our story. And so I love the start of mine. The middle part with Don and Dominic and Kelton is just an exciting part. And there was, and then there was a rough patch, and the rough patch, it helped me grow. Somebody says that God won't change your situation, but he will change your heart to deal with the situation. So, here's some things I do differently now. Half a tomato years ago would go in the garbage. We'll make 4 trips to the food bank in 7 or 8 months. And you know what? We use that tomato until it's gone. We don't waste food.
Right.
We don't. And that sounds probably minute to some people. To go, well, now, you know what? The milk, don't let it turn. Use it, get it used up. If it's going to date, get it used up for something, recipe, whatever,
Yeah. But I mean, it's such a simple thing, right? I mean, it's not complicated, right? It's just a simple thing. And I agree with you. I mean, I said, why waste it? If they don't want to eat it, that's fine. But to the fact of, is there some laborers around? So there's a janitor there. They have families. They have like.
Oh yeah. It's like when we put coffee on in our locker room in the morning. A majority of our players don't drink coffee, but I always text the arena number, and they know the coffee's on. They come down and they're respectful, and and again, those are reaching out. Those are opportunities to reach out. And,
I think that actually I have to catch you off there, Brian, and I think that it goes back to your story. Those are your opportunities to engage.
Yeah.
You just use coffee to do it. You could use a pizza to do it. You could use whatever to do it.
A joke.
Yeah.
Joke. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is your way of actually engaging.
Yeah.
And I take from this too. That's your way of bettering the pond, right? I was reading through some of your stuff and I had to laugh. I was the laughter mixologist. I mean, if that is not an incredible title to have, a laughter mixologist. First time I've ever heard that. So good for you, and I thank you. Part of this, in doing the podcast that I'm doing, Brian, is as Gary Maxwell would say, brighten the feed, and do something kind. Again, from a smile to a door to a thank you to a pizza to a coffee to an engagement. We don't have to complicate it. It is really simple. And the more that people do that and watch, they can see you doing something, and hopefully they'll catch on and be inspired enough to do it for someone else.
Well, and I appreciate that. The Facebook Lives I'm doing through our teams and my Facebook page, weekly, that was brought on to me by both Gary and my wife. It was an opportunity. This year I had, a few things. I was supposed to do a talk for the Kidney Foundation down in Bentonville, Arkansas. I was going to talk to raise money for Alzheimer's research in Ottawa, and a couple other things. And obviously with the pandemic and that, and Gary goes, "We got to keep your name out there, and let's do this." And my wife goes, "You got to do it, Brian. You got to do it." See, I feed off an audience.
Yeah.
I do.
I have a feeling.
Yeah. So when I'm sitting here talking to a computer, and I got 2 guys on a computer, but I said to Gary one time, I said, "Gary, you know how I feel." I said, "I feel like, I don't know if you watch Seinfeld and all, but I said, I feel like when Kramer found the Merv Griffin set in the garbage behind his apartment and brought it in and set it up, and he was hosting a show in his apartment, no cameras, no nothing." I said, what I do is rough around the edges. I've had some fantastic guests, thanks to Gare and to my contacts. And now, I probably didn't tell you this before I came on, but it's tit for tat, So you're gonna be coming on our broadcast someday. You don't have a way out of it now. You've already.
Did you say tit for Pataf?
Yeah, well, that's right. Yeah. But this has just been like a summer or a time like no other for so many people. So many people right now are just hurting, whether it's financially or emotionally, and so when you can take something like the internet that can be a wonderful thing, or it can be just a terrible thing.
Yes.
You can take it and make somebody smile, just do something positive on it, and I've had like Sandy Gennaro come on, he's iconic rock and roll drummer, and he's come on. Blanchard Ryan, her name's Susan Blanchard Ryan, but she started in Open Water and Beer Fest and that. Her dad was the president of the Philadelphia Flyers. She came on, and it showed me, okay, it's the entertainment side of the equation, and these people are people, and they have a story, and they share their story. And I've had media people come on, and then a lot of hockey people and sports people, and it's been a fun adventure. I think getting this opportunity from you is all part of that, all part of the puzzle that I'm putting together. I will tell you, in 2015, you could have been up and running. I wasn't going to get a call from you. It's all relationships.
Absolutely.
Gare called me in 2015. We hadn't talked in 20 years. We found each other on Facebook. And he got a hold of me. It's relationships. Well, I talked to Dawn the other day about coming on, and I sent her a link to the thing Gary did with you. She goes, "Brian," she goes, "that's amazing." So I don't mean to blow smoke right now or anything, but in 2015, when I was sitting on the end of the couch, smiles were hard to come by. They were there, but they were just buried under so much anger.
Yeah.
You know, and you know what? I love life. I love the world. God has been good to me, and I just, you know, I'm having fun with this, and you know, meeting people like yourself, Lisa Longball. I don't know if you know Lisa.
In fact, she is on my calendar tomorrow to connect with her, because we're going to have Lisa Longball on the podcast as well.
She is just an absolute wonderful person. I mean, energy. You know, it's funny when Gary introduced us online, and I asked her to come on, and she said, "Who am I coming on with?" I said, "Well, I'll find somebody." I found a media guy I knew, Chris Stevenson. Well, they knew each other. They had played golf together. I didn't know that. You know what? I just lobbed one out there, sat back like this, and they carried it. She's just got so much energy. I'm looking at some of the things she's posting on Facebook, on the wakeboard and everything else. She's just a wonderful person. Wonderful person.
I can't wait to have her on. It's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, Brian, I really want to thank you. This has been so engaging. You're an incredible person, and I love to hear your story. And you know, even though you had the times when things weren't so good, and you know, your pride was hurt, and you know, and smiles were hard to find, you still had the courage and the tenacity to pull yourself out the other side. You know,
made me.
You didn't stay there.
Those times made me who I am today.
Absolutely.
Because if it was all good, you know what? You kind of get up on this pedestal and you don't see what's going on around you. You know. Yep. So I caught my vision by the tough times. You know, whether it was 7th grade, you know, and going to my first public school. I mean, it's just traumatic. Yep. You know, I'd never seen it before, and you know, I wasn't prepared for it. Could my parents have done anything to prepare me for it? I don't think so. Probably you know, not. We lived this sheltered life on the base where you had to show a pass to get on and on, you know, get on. And all my friends were kids whose dad was in the Air Force.
Right.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. You know, and thank you for doing what you're doing, and thank you for engaging and helping young players, and doing your lives as well, and the people's. That's fantastic. So where do we go to find you, Brian? I know we didn't even talk about your book or anything, but one of the, actually, I got to say this, is one of the quotes that I read of yours, which really left a really interesting mark, was I want to leave fingerprints on the moon. And I thought that's an incredible quote, and to me that sheds a lot of light in your character. So where do we find you?
Okay, well, you can go to my website, which is real simple, brianpatafie.com. Okay. And my first book came out in 2009. It was called Ice It Down, A Look at Pro Hockey Through a Trainer's Eyes. And it did very, very well. I was really happy with it. But I have people get in touch with me and say, I can't find your book. Well, it came out in 2009, and my name's not Dean Koontz or Stephen King. You know, there wasn't a reprint or a rewrite or anything else. But I was set to drop one in December of last year. And I do have to tell you, it was called No Days Off, The Story of a Hockey Purgatory. And it'll tell you on my website what had happened. This was going to drop right around the 1st of December. And then all of a sudden, the things were happening with Don Cherry and with the coach in Calgary and Mark Crawford. And I know Mark Crawford. Mark Crawford's a good guy. But all this stuff was coming out. And I went through my manuscript and I go, you know what? No, I can't say that. You know, even though it's true, I can't say that. I've made all my money in the game of hockey. You know, a little bit on a book and some at Food Lion. But I've made my living and fed my family in the game of hockey.
Yeah. I'm
not going to make money trashing the game of hockey or ruin somebody else's life because maybe an indiscretion on their part. Because in life, every one of us wants a do-over somewhere, okay? You know, I remember 3 years ago in Germany on Valentine's Day, sending a message to a girl that I dated in Salt Lake City, who's married with children now, but I wasn't nice to her back then. But I was a different person back then. But we followed each other on Facebook, and I sent her the message to apologize. And she, you know, because we all want that do-over in life. And if you know, they say hindsight's 20/20. If I could go back, I wouldn't have been like that to her, you know?
Right.
And there's people, you know, throughout my life, like I like to paint, you know, unicorns and rainbows, but I've said things.
Yep.
I've hurt people. You know?
Yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah. And so I was not going to put in print and somebody maybe lose a job over it, you know?
Yeah.
I said, you know what? Because there's enough people that could say, put something in print that maybe something I did, you know? So I just sort of scrapped that. I talked to the people that are helping me out with it, and I'm doing some rewrite, and I've got to get motivated. Some days I'm motivated to get on the computer and work on it, but you know what? my website, brianpatafie.com is where, people want to hire me to come and speak to their group or to, at a dinner. And I go different ways. I can come in and do a comedy routine if that's what you want, or we can just come in and do a workshop and walk out feeling good about ourselves. So that's my website. The other is my Facebook page, and that's Brian Patafie on Facebook, and it's a wide open page. And we do our spiel our Facebook Live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern.
6 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so the listeners can look for that. And Live with Taff.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And are you on LinkedIn as well, or?
I'm on LinkedIn, and I go there, off and on. I'm on Twitter. It's at @bpatafie, and my Twitter is more of a parody. I like to make fun of, it's kind of like some of my Facebook posts you'll see about the Leafs will be on Twitter, and I do use Twitter as a different, like I'll stand up and say, okay, make fun of the Leafs or make fun of the Calgary Stampeders or I don't know, make fun of some actor or something, but it's all in fun.
It's all in fun. Yeah, absolutely. I know you got a good sense of humor. So
yeah, well, I like to.
You're a laughter mixologist. How can you?
I am a laughter mixologist. Yes, and I've got my doctorate in that.
You doctorate? Wow.
Yeah.
So you are Dr. Brian Patafie.
That's right. Yeah.
I am honored, my friend. I am honored.
Well, I'll tell you what. I got my doctorate in laughter mixologist, but that doctorate is not helping anybody during this COVID thing. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Maybe not on the medical side, but definitely on the mental health side. So
yeah. Well, there you go. And that's funny because my wife, who's a registered nurse, has been, just working just day after day, and my son, who tested positive for it, and he's living in Montana working on that campaign out there, and and I couldn't. It's a 13-hour drive for me, but because of what's going on on the border, I couldn't drive down just to peek through the window at him and show him support.
Right. She
couldn't fly up. She's go. So it's affected. If it hasn't affected someone personally, it's affected somebody they know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you do know what they say about laughter, though, Brian.
What's that?
It is the best medicine.
Absolutely.
And, so
you don't need a prescription.
You don't need a prescription. Thank you, Dr. Patafie, for providing laughter in a time that has been very, very stressful for a lot of people. And bless you for doing everything that you do. So,
well, thank you very much,
Brian. I really want to thank you for your time today. It was very engaging. I loved your story. Hope all the listeners go out there and check out Brian if you want to hire him to do speaking engagements once we get back to hopefully some normalcy of life. But watch for the lives. Check him on Facebook. Go to his website. Again, I can't thank you enough. So there you have it. Here we are with Dr. Brian Patafie, the laughter mixologist. And this is Warren Barry, and I'm flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond because we're better together. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, sir.